Blessings and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you are across this world. I'm the host, the one and only Mr. LP, STEVENSYKES of ENLIVENGLOBALMEDIA. And today I am honored, blessed, and just extremely grateful to have a wonderful gentleman that's been in this game for many years, still a very young man that's active and has put his everything he can and then some to share his life, his experiences regarding money, life, family, and so much more. And it's a treasure. When you think of King X, what have you, this man needs to be on your wall as well. Things. And I hope that through this interview and after this interview that you keep this treasured and please share with your family regardless of cultural and background, because today we're going to impact some great information that's going to be very helpful. Today I'm honored and thank the Lord that I'm blessed to have Mr. George Fraser here with us today. Blessings and good day to you, sir.
God bless you. It's an honor to be here and an honor to have this time to speak truth to power. To our culture, to our people. And it's just another brick that is needed to affect change in our culture. And so we'll talk about that in this presentation, change.
Yes, sir. Well, there's so many things that are out there going on today, politically, socially, health, medical, mental, just so many things out there. But I want to get to the root and things. You can't, as with everything else, when you make a meal, you have to have that base. When you build your home, you have to have that foundation. When you set out in life, you have to have a goal. And in this case, I want to talk about family. And we're especially in our Black families, our matrimony and family, and a path towards how we can identify it. How can we pass to success, power, remediation, restoration, and so much more with that. And first off, I want to ask you, what do you believe is the root causes behind some of the things that we have in terms of a critical state in the Black matrimony and family today?
That's a very deep and very, very important question. And it there's just so many answers and so many perspectives to it. But we have lost our way when it comes to the importance and power of marriage. I mean, in fact, there is an existential crisis in our culture. There are a number of reasons that caused it. Make no mistake about that. And these reasons have caused an enormous amount of stress. But there have been economic disparities. Make no mistake about that. Historically, in our culture, there have been cultural shifts. Certainly, within the last 4 generations that I've been living, there have been high rates of incarceration, making the male availability, the Black male availability, more competitive and scarcer. Educational attainment is only now rising. That has been one of the issues. We don't really know the answers to the deep questions like you're asking. There have been changes in social networks and how people network. There have been change in core values and guiding principles. There's been change in leadership. Let me say that a different way. Let me say it simple. When something isn't working, and it hasn't been working for generations, well, there's another way to say that. If the fish stinks, look to the head. It's leadership, leadership, leadership. It doesn't mean that we haven't had leadership. Yes, we have. But we have not had leadership, guidance, counsel, therapy on human relationships between male, Black male, and female. We haven't had guidance on how to sustain a marriage over a very long period of time. We haven't had educational guidance in what are the elements that keep a marriage together? What are the elements that encourage you or motivate you to marry a particular person? How are you dating? What are you looking for when you date? Because that's the prerequisite for ultimately making that decision. So it's a long list of things that has resulted right now in a crisis, not only in matrimony, but certainly a crisis in matrimony leads to a crisis of the Black family. Right. So yes, there is an existential crisis of the Black family, and that is facilitated much by the paucity of marriage, the reduction of marriage. Marriage in our culture was at an all-time high in the 1950s. We were nearly 80% married. In fact, during slavery, the rate of marriage was 3 times higher than the rate of marriage today. And this is during slavery when marriage was illegal. All right. We jumped the broom. We had another word for marriage. But today, marriage in our culture is at 23%, down from 80% to 23%. That is a crisis. 71% of Black women are not married. 29% will never get married. 66% of Black men are not married. 34% of Black men will never get married. It's exacerbated by 2 other statistics, and that is that 72% of our children are born out of wedlock, and nearly 80% of our children are raised in a single-parent household, principally by a Black woman. Now, that is not the grand design of God. The grand design of God is that a child must have both male and female energy participating in the raising of that child. If 80% of our children are being raised in a single-parent household, principally by a Black woman, that child is dominated by feminine energy. And that would be okay to some extent if you were just raising girls. But even girls need male energy, because a father informs the daughter of what a man really is, and then informs her choices on who she picks as her life partner.
Well,
So, yes.
what would you say to those people who feel, and especially in today, we have a lot of the independent, as they like to title, some would title themselves, or a strong woman. They feel that, okay, I've had this, but I will just ensure to make sure I have positive male influences, such as coaches. I may have my uncle, I may have my brother, my grandfather around, because the male that they chose to have a child with either left, were never married to begin with, and wasn't looking to get married, or incarceration, or unfortunately in some cases death. What do you say to those women and that mindset?
Bless it and release it. There's nothing you can do about that. That's done. Now, has it had a traumatic impact on you? Yes, it has. Has it affected, and affected how you commingle, how you participate in a relationship with the opposite sex? Yes, it does. There's a thing, are you dealing with a trauma? Yes, you are. All of us are. But there's therapy. There are awesome brothers and sisters all over this country who specifically deal with Black trauma, specifically deal with Black marriages, right? So there is a methodology, there is a way, there is an opportunity to resolve that. Now, are you going to resolve it immediately? Is it a 3-week therapy course? No. It may be a lifetime of therapy. So I know that in my family, I've been married 52 years to the same sister. All right. We have 2 wonderful sons and 3 granddaughters now. And we know that our sons did the right thing. They had a model, a black mother and a black father, staying together through thick and thin, through hell and high water, for 52 years to date, right? So that's a half a century plus 2 years. So they had the right models. And so they did the right thing. What is the right thing? It's very simple. They found someone that they know, they loved and respected. They dated, they married, and then they had children. And then they went on to build their lives and and to facilitate their career. So we know that the model that they saw, their parents, their mother and their father, 100% present, informed their decisions and their behavior. Now, what occurred during the first 20 years of their life? We had a family therapist. That's what we had. My very close friend, Dr. Qua David Whitaker, a PhD in psychology and a PhD in law. And we got counsel from him over the first 20 years of our marriage life and raising our children. So there would be times when my wife and I would meet with him. There would be times when I would meet with him alone, and she would meet with him alone. And there would be times that the entire family would meet with him. Why? Because we brought baggage to the table, trauma, and we had to deal with it. And there was no real book on how to properly raise children from an African-centered way, right? So we got help, and there's help out there. In fact, there's a ton of help on social media. Visit Instagram any evening, and all kinds of therapy, from Black therapists giving advice and counsel on how to manage and facilitate a relationship with a male or a female, how to comport yourself, and the things to do and not to do when married, etc. So it is a it's an open book. There's no excuse that you don't know. We're all addicted to social media. It's right there in your pocket. It's available to you now in the best way that we, Black people, like to receive information. We're oral, visual, tactile, kinesthetic, and auditory learners. That's what Black people are.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
say that again. We're oral, visual, tactile, kinesthetic, and auditory learners, right? Show me, tell me, right? Paint a picture for me. All of that is right there on social media. Exactly the way that we like to consume knowledge and content. So there's no excuse.
Understand that is true. Whew, that is true. And adding to that, what are the ways the economic divide, and I'm not so sure that's the best word to say use, but economic divide affected the dynamics of marriage and family in the Black community today?
Well, the economic divide has always infected, affected, and affected Black people throughout the history of Black people in America. And it was facilitated by the lack of educational attainment. I mean, when we first got here, we weren't even allowed to read books,
Right.
let alone go to school. Right. So when you're uneducated, all you can do is low skilled labor, which is in fact all they had us doing, which was basically picking cotton. cotton, and all you needed to learn was how to properly pick cotton so you don't tear up your fingers in picking cotton because it's a thorny deal, okay? So educational attainment was achieved over a 4-generation period of time. So much so that when I was growing up, I grew up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York, to a family of 11 children, 8 boys and 3 girls. And what were my parents telling my sisters? Don't ever depend on a man to take care of you. Black men are under attack. So you must prepare yourself with the proper education and the proper work so that you can take care of yourself. That was the plan. That not the first plan, it was the second plan. That was the option plan in case you were not able to find the right brother.
Right.
At least you had a backup plan. You could take care of yourself. So economics has always played a significant role in our upward mobility, and we were late to the game as a culture. But that is no longer the excuse. Black women are the most educated women in America.
Yes.
40% of the master's degrees conferred in the United States in a given year go to Black women. And we're 14% of the population. So
That tells you something. That really tells you the resilience and the foundation there.
oh yes, absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. No question about it. But did it have a negative impact on our upward mobility and starting and building families and providing those families and protecting those families the way that the vows say? Yes, it had a significant impact. And our numbers suffered for that. And what's so interesting, though, is that in spite of those numbers, remember, the highest marriage rate we've had was in the 1950s. And we still didn't have large educational attainment numbers, but we had solid modeling from our, let's call them old school parents, right? I'm a boomer. I'm the oldest of the boomers. Our parents were from the silent generation, and they needed each other. And a woman, a Black woman then, because they did not have the same opportunities that white women, the things that we could do is domestic work. Or if you were a professional, you could teach, but it was limited. So in spite of the limitations, because we stayed together through hell and high water, I'm talking about old school silent generation, come hell or high water, we stayed together through thick and thin. That was the model for the next generation. And that's and to that extent, that facilitated this very high rate of marriage over a relatively long period of time. And then a whole bunch of other dynamics occurred that began to deteriorate and to reduce the marriage rate. Now, let me say this about that. Without couples, you have no families. Without families, you have no community. Without community, you have no tradition. Without tradition, you have no culture. And without culture, you basically have no existence. So it's critically important that we get this together. And I think we're moving in the right direction. Another thought for our viewing audience is that there is no culture in the history of humankind that has risen to maximize their full cultural potential without family at the center of that culture. that does not exist except for in the United States of America among Black people. But every place else that I have visited throughout the diaspora over my 50 years of service, 31 countries throughout the diaspora, family is at the center of that culture. Community is at the center of that culture. Unity is at the center of that culture. So it's critically important that we, in fact, get back on track. Another dynamic, other than the stress that it creates, because it does create stress. We're trying to be kind of cool about it. But stress does not come, Stephen, from hard work. Stress primarily comes from not taking action on something you can have control over.
Mm.
Stress comes from ignoring things that you should not be ignoring. What am I saying, brothers and sisters? The magic you're looking for is in the work that you are avoiding. And therefore you are stressed. You can do it. We have done it. You just need to change your mind, because only a fool can't change his mind. We need to change our mind, but you will never change that which you tolerate. You will only change when you get angry. People will not change when they see the light, Stephen. People will change when they feel the heat. You will change your shoes when your feet hurt.
But
No
why?
pain, no
But why
gain.
we wait till the last minute till we, as a culture, I'm guilty of. Everybody go to guilty at some point. We wait till the breakneck point, in some cases, past the point of no return before we change.
That's right.
And we get to this point where me and a dear friend of mine, Author Tracy Hardy Scott, we talk about this all the time. That why we keep looking for. We say on time, we need these leaders, we need somebody else to come up and show us what. Why? When the framework is already there, others have already put it out there and taught us. It's not like we don't know. We do stories of Richmond, Tulsa, Rosewood, Seneca, all these other different places, not even just here in America, but just in Nice and some of the villages outside of France or in Africa, all these places where we've had tremendous Black growth and community, family, culture, political, in order to make our communities grow. But we keep sitting here saying, where's this? Where's this? Versus when it's already in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Why we keep looking for that? What is it that we need to do to change that mind shift, that switch in our head to say that you already have it? Go do.
Right. Do the work. Do the work. The biggest gap in the world is the gap between knowing and not doing. Right? So we know these things exist. What I'm talking about is not a surprise to anybody viewing this. We know that. Right? So the question then becomes, what must we do to fix it? Or what must I do in my own situation? Now, many have answered that question. 23% are married. So there are those who have answered that question. So my advice in selecting a partner, if you can't build with them, don't chill with them. That means you have to ask the right questions beginning at the dating stage.
That's okay, because a lot of them are in this thing of like, I want to build. They don't want to build. They want to do this thing with, like, they want you to come ready made. Both men and women have been guilty of this, versus saying, okay, if I have 100, whatever amount of money, and this person may be the grocery store clerk. I don't want to work with them because they're not on my level, and they only looking at it from a status or financial, but they refuse to look at it from, you don't know what that person's mental They're focused. You don't know what they're doing to ascend to that level or things like that, or they taking a break because of a medical or take care of family. All these other different aspects, dynamics that come into play, but they won't see it that way for the heart. I believe that you should have look for the person, ask those right questions so you can look for the person that's willing to give you everything, not that man or woman checks off every single box that you want.
Yeah, that's an important insight, Stephen. It begins in the dating process and asking the right questions of what you are considering to be a potential life partner, right? You are considering putting your hand on the Bible and saying, "Till death do us part." Now, that's a hell of a thing to commit to someone without really knowing, and this all happens in the dating or courting process, who that person really is, and asking them the right questions. And most of us don't even know the right questions to ask a potential lifelong partner, right? Something like, what do you what do you think about children? What do you think about money? What do you think about, oh, what are your values? Right? What do you think about parenting? Here's a big question to ask. What will you do to help save this marriage when things get hard and go wrong? Because you're not going to commit your life to anyone and it's going to be perfect. Stuff is going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. There'll be hills and valleys and twists and turns. No question about that. The metaphor I use, if you're going down a beautifully paved road and there are no twists and turns or hills and valleys, that road will probably lead you nowhere. So it's not going to happen that way. So what would you do to save this marriage? What are you committed to? So you got to ask the right questions because you got to find the right partner. And in fact, when you look at the statistics on what are the biggest reasons people divorce, you want to know the number one reason? And it's not money.
No, I would say a lot of it is I have two words, but the first one that hits into me is expectations because they did not talk and have that communication to
There you
see
go.
what they wanted.
Uncommunicated expectations. There's something you were dreaming of and you wanted from your man, but you never effectively communicated it to him or to her. Right? So we're not brain readers and mind readers. So effective communications with your partner throughout your life is extremely important. Do you know what the second reason is?
Unrealistic expectations.
But yes, that's exactly right. It's not the second reason, but it's a big reason, and but you need to ferret that out in the right questions during the courting process. Is what their expectations unrealistic of me? Does this person want to have intimacy 25 times a month? Are they hypersexual? Well, if you're not built or born that way, I mean, there are people that are born hypersexual, but if you are not, you don't want to hook up with someone for the rest of your life that will put that kind of burden on you, and you ain't feeling that, right? So you've got to find out during the courting process, where can we be friends? How can we be friends? How can we be partners? Right? This is extremely important. Are you smart enough to maintain and to sustain a relationship. I mean, because it takes intelligence, right? So just very simply, there are three things that you want to look for in a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably say the same kinds of things you want to look for in a man, but in a woman, you want a smart woman. You want them to be smart and agreeable. So you see, smart but disagreeable is not in high demand.
I would say smart and discipline, smart, discipline, and faith. Those are the kind of very disciplined woman.
That's right. You want a cooperative woman. And disagreeable and smart, but not agreeable, is useless if she only cooperates when she agrees. You can reverse it as well.
Gosh, men are terrible. Men have been bad on this aspect, so much so.
Right. So smart, or cooperative and agreeable, but not smart, is useless. It's the blind leading the blind. So you need those, you need smart, cooperative, and agreeable.
Mm.
And so it's not complicated. Now, each of us are complicated. We have different DNA. We come from different backgrounds, and we decided to come together and say, till death do us part. Now, by the way, one of the things I will be suggesting in my new book that will be coming out, the crisis of matrimony in the family, and black matrimony in the family, I'm going to suggest that we change a little piece of the vow. And a little piece of the vow that we put our hands on the Bible is till death do us part. Well, that's a hell of a thing to commit yourself to and to look towards. So I'm going to suggest that we change it to, for as long as we shall love.
Mm.
So what are you looking towards? Staying in love. For as long as we shall love, instead of till death do us part.
That's very powerful because there's always, it seems to be, level of conditions, both men and women. I think it gets associated with women a whole lot more, but it's always these conditions of like, I love you, not because of what I'm sorry, you love me, but not because of what I can and can't do. I may not be able to give you A, B, C, D, F, G, but I would love you all I can. But it seems like there's the old joke, Chris Rock or somebody said about, women, pets, and things and children are loved unconditionally. Men only of how much you can provide is how much they love you. And it's the same, but I've always said that also works in reverse because men have been very guilty of this as well.
That's right. Well, I believe that there are some red flags when you're dating. And these red flags are for all men and all women. If you detect any of these red flags, be very cautious.
Okay.
What's the number one red flag? It's what I call non-reciprocal energy. So if she or he isn't as excited to be with you as you are with them, with the energy that you're showing and putting in, that's a red flag. Right? If he comes home after work each day, tired and stressed from sword fighting the world, and you just say, "Hi, darling. Hello." Or you don't greet him in a way that inspires him and encourages him, and in a sense, a micro celebration that you put in a good day's work, and you will be able to fulfill that role of provision and protection. So if you're a low energy person, you're probably are not going to match up well with a high energy person. Look for that energy. Are they as excited to see you as you are to see them? Do they smile when they see you? Or are they growling, frowning, or showing a facial expression of, let's say, neutrality? They don't care one way or the other. Energy is very important. What is the number 2 red flag? You said it earlier. We both said it. Unrealistic financial expectations. Right? So if you're required every 3 weeks to make sure that you pay for her hair, her fingernails, her toes, and all of those things, even while you're dating, that's a red flag. It's a red flag. A third red flag would be immaturity and uncontrolled emotions. Does she have a high emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to control the 5 most important emotions that you have: happiness, sadness, fear, shame. Is she emotionally mature? Or does she just act crazy and goes off the rails when something big or small happens? You want to find a partner with a relatively high emotional intelligence. Let me say that a different way. As you grow older and wiser, you will understand that your EQ, your emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, will be more important than your IQ. You see, I don't care if you have a PhD in rocket science from MIT, but if you have the personality or the emotional intelligence of a box of rocks, you ain't going nowhere. So a highly developed emotional intelligence is a very, very, very important good sign, but a red flag. And that's why you want to extend the dating period before you decide to make that person your life partner over an extended period of time. But I don't really think you need any more than a year. Why? Because you want to see them in all kinds of situations and how they handle their problems, our problems, the advice that she gives you or he gives you for your problems. You want to get experience in that area. That takes about no longer than a year. That's a red flag.
I see these people be in these relationships. And they live together for a number of years or whatever. They be 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years in some cases and never marry. Or then eventually they'll break up, and then that woman don't want to deal with nobody because it's like, oh, I've been in a relationship or married, somewhat married for whatever all these years, and it's like you're burning out. I get frustrated when men do this. But I also get frustrated with women for allowing it as well. Like men take the lead, women set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
That's
like,
a way to say. That's a way to say it. I would say it. I would say it a different way. I
sure.
would say, in the household, man is the law, and women are the love. But you can't have law without love, and you can't have love without law. Somebody has to be responsible for the final say. And the hierarchy of life is, first there is God, then there is man, and then there is woman. So the man is the law, And this is why you need male energy when raising children, whether boy or girl. You need male energy, law, discipline. Women provide love. They are masterful at nurturing. This is what they are designed to do. This is why women are so beautifully and hopefully softly repetitive. Because when you're raising little children, you have to repeat things over and over and over again. But not when you're partnering, generally speaking, with a mature man.
No, exactly.
Does that make sense to you?
It makes a whole lot of sense. It's ringing in my ears right now, and just like daggone it, it's having because you hear a lot of women say they got to keep telling the guy something over and over and over again. And it's just like the flags, it's like, are we listening, or we just got something to say? How it's being disseminated, how it's being received, all those things. Yes, sir. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. So that's immaturity is a red flag, uncontrolled emotions. And then the final red flag, as I see it, is no femininity, too masculine. Now, this is a real important red flag. Now, of course, the reverse could be true with a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
No masculinity, too feminine, right? So there are roles that each plays. But many of our women, not all of them, but too many of them, um, have really learned or have been taught or have seen models that make them a tad more masculine than a really feminine woman ought to be. Right. So I want a feminine woman. Doesn't mean that a woman does not take charge of certain things. This whole notion of submission that we expect of a woman also applies to the man. And there, absolutely, a man certainly, in addition to being a provider and a protector, has to submit to the idea of helping to build infrastructure in the family. There's no question about that. So we submit to that idea. We participate in helping to build the infrastructure. That is what, in addition to providing, there's infrastructure that the family has to have. There's order. There are rules and regulations. There's physical structure that has to be developed. So, and much of that, the man must play a role as well. So, for example, in my household, you know, generally speaking, I'm responsible for taking out the garbage. Right. So there are tasks, right? If something breaks, Norgine doesn't attempt to fix it. I fix it, or I get someone to fix it. So there is submission. There are roles that we have that are assigned. Now, it may vary 1 degree or 10 degrees for each couple, but there is or are roles, which requires submission on both parts.
Mm.
So this is so we're looking for a feminine woman, and in all her femininity and intimacy, because that's one of the biggest reasons that marriages fail, by the way. And actually, it's the second biggest reason. The second biggest reason is non-sexual intimacy, holding, touching, hugging, emitting the energy to communicate effectively to your partner that you love them, that you appreciate them. And that goes both ways, right? So non-sexual intimacy is extremely important. At some point in time, if for whatever reason a man or a woman decides, you sleep upstairs and I'll sleep downstairs, that's a challenge. No, of course. But, you know, and you know, there could be reasons for it. There could be illnesses that require that the other person, you know, is very susceptible to certain kinds of contagions and is paranoid about if you're the person going outside of the house, like for example, like I am. All right. And going all over the world and traveling, and you have a partner that is very susceptible to certain kinds of contagions, you want to be very, very cautious. So there are reasons for it, but it tends to come in in the later stages of marriage, not in the early stages of marriage.
A little bit more freedom in the mindset.
That,
You know,
that,
you're
that,
willing to
that,
take more risk, I should say.
that's right. Right. So, um, but again, all of that is peculiar to the relationship. Um, all of these rules and thoughts and ideas do not apply to everybody every time. Let me say that a different way. There is something for everybody, but not everything is for everybody. And if you're building something for everybody, you're building something for nobody because we're all unique individuals. So it's navigating and negotiating the uniquenesses in us that cause friendship, causes partnership, causes cohabitation, because a lot of us are moving to partnerships, situationships, and cohabitation. Right? It's one of the reasons that marriage is down. So it's complicated, and the more we understand it, the more each partner understands what each partner understands, uh, the more likely you are to be able to sustain it over the commitment of till death do us part, or as long as we shall love.
How can economic, here's a question that was brewing in my head for the longest for years. How can economic empowerment and entrepreneurship help strengthen Black households and relationships?
That's a good question, Stephen. Let's just take a quick look at the economic impact of the state of marriage in our culture has produced for us. And it's a very simple analogy. It is simply looking at the 5 largest cultural groups in America. What is their median household annual income? And then compare it to the marriage rate. Okay. It's very, 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 very simple. I may have come up with that analogy, but here's how it looks. Now, for 350 years, Stephen, white people have had the #1 median household annual income. For 350 years, they were #1 in America. They are no longer #1. They are #3. Why, Dr. Fraser? Because they too are suffering from the same problem that we are suffering from, right? Their marriage rate went down from 90% in the 50s to 57% today.
Mm.
Now, you know the old saying, when white folks catch a cold, Black people catch pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're at 57, we are at 23 and going down fast. And statistics tell us and trends tell us that if we don't fix this within the next 20 years, marriage rate in our community will be in the low teens. And interracial marriage will be at an all-time high, by the way. It's projected by 2060, 45% of Black men who are married will be married to white women, and 30% of Black women will be married to white men. So we're making other decisions. So unless we fix the issues between us, because right now it is a toxic environment between Black men and Black women, and they are making different decisions, and we are making different decisions. But back to my original point, median household income by cultural group. The number one in terms of median household income in America are East Indians at $124,000 a year. Marriage rate, 94%. Number two are Chinese Asians at $109,000 a year. Marriage rate, nearly 70%. Number three are white folk. Median annual household income, 81,000, marriage rate 57%. Fourth are Hispanics at $63,000 a year, marriage rate at nearly 70%. And the last are Black people at $53,000 a year, marriage rate 23%. So we have some serious work to do. We have serious work to do.
Those numbers
Now,
hurt hearing it. They hurt.
will entrepreneurship, creating working jobs for our own people, increasing our chances of building greater wealth, critically important? Yes, it is. Are more of us thinking entrepreneurially today than ever before in the history of our people in this country? Yes, they are. All you have to do is look at the statistics. This comes from the U.S. Census Bureau. Last census, 3.7 million Black-owned businesses in America. That's up like 45% over the last 5-year reporting period. Right, so that's excellent. That's the upside. What's the downside of that statistic? Only about 160,000 of those 3.7 million businesses employ anybody. And the average annual revenue, Stephen, is somewhere around $130,000, $140,000 a year.
Mm.
I'm sorry, no, wrong. $1.2 million a year of the 150 or so that employ $1.2, $1.3 million a year. Now, that means that 3.5 million of those businesses are fundamentally sole proprietorships. But the upside is that we're thinking in the right direction. We're thinking more entrepreneurial as a culture.
Now we just got to get to supporting those businesses so we can keep
and the annual
going.
revenue of a Black sole proprietorship is about $30,000 a year, which is essentially near the poverty line. So now, a lot of these people with sole proprietorships, these are side hustles. They are not necessarily full-time. A lot of side hustles that you turn your side hustle ultimately into a thriving small business, but you've got to start somewhere. So we're moving in we're moving in the right direction, and more of us are beginning to start and to build businesses. In fact, in a market-based economy, in a democratic capitalist society, the only color that really matters is green. So until our pile of green is as deep and as high and as wide as any other cultural group's pile of green, we will, always be at the bottom of the list. So we have to build businesses that 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 appeal to a consumption class. Now, Black people are the consumption class. White people are the merchant class. They make stuff, we buy stuff. So we have to start making stuff and selling stuff and starting businesses. I don't care if it's quarter time, part time, or full time. Right? If you bake cookies, put them in a box and sell it to somebody. If you live on a farm, take the manure, put it in a bag, put your name on it, and sell it to somebody. You can become an entrepreneur, okay? But sell something. We are some of the most creative people on the planet, where we now dominate music and entertainment and sports and celebrity in those areas. That all of that stuff is for sale. So how do you sell celebrity? Well, you see it all the time. It's called endorsement. Your celebrity gets you $1 million endorsement from a brand. And you see it all the time on television. So, yes, that's one way. The other way, of course, and this is, of course, an evergreen topic, we must recycle our dollars. We must support and purchase from our own. Now, 50 years ago, you could have said, well, Black people don't either have the variety of products and services that we need or the quality of products and services that we need. That's no longer true at 3.7 million businesses. So recycling our dollars and getting out of the mindset that the white man's ice is colder or the white man's sugar is sweeter is a trauma and a therapy that we need, that we will see white entrepreneurial productivity of products and services, Black, I should say, entrepreneurial products and services as equal to whites. And in many cases, depending on the product or service, it's better. So, and then we have to move away from this mindset. Well, I went to and purchased something from a Black store, and the service wasn't good, or the price was incrementally higher. Well, that's the wrong attitude. Right? Of course. And then you say, I'm never going to do business with a Black person again. So you're judging all Black businesses by your experience in a few Black businesses. That is unfair and does not work. So
We don't do that to McDonald's every
no,
time we get Coke
no,
fries.
no, we don't do it to any, or very few, I should say. I wouldn't say any, but very few white businesses. If we go to Saks Fifth Avenue and we purchase something, and and ultimately we don't get the kind of service that we think we deserve from Saks Fifth Avenue, or the product doesn't meet our standards once we get home, we don't say, we take it back to Saks and get an exchange, and we don't say we ain't never doing business with Saks Fifth Avenue anymore, or Macy's department store anymore, or the local pizza shop. Uh, the pizza wasn't good that day or that week, but they
I,
have history.
I give
Yeah,
you something to add to that. We automatically attribute that it's the customer's fault, and things of that. We give that grace to them. We don't. So like, if I return a watch to Saks and whatever, and I say it's wrong or this, that, and if I say something about it publicly, you must have did something wrong, because that's Saks. We don't do that type of level of grace and support to our own businesses.
that's right. We must give second and third chances. And the other thing, we must, if something, you're doing business with a Black person, if something isn't right, it is only morally right to constructively critique that business. In other words, when you take it back, or if you have a complaint, you go and you tell people in a nice way what happened, what went wrong, so that they can get better at it. They need to know. You just can't go home, gossip, get on the phone, dog them out, and never even tell them so that they can improve. Most intelligent people will appreciate that if you do it the right way and make a change.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What two more questions for you, sir. What message do you believe, and I think we've already covered it, but and to give it a header, what message do you believe today's youth need to hear most about when it comes to love, commitment, and legacy? More importantly, legacy.
It's a message of ambition. Ambition is the road to success, no question about that. But persistence is the vehicle that you arrive in. You must be ambitious. I was ambitious in spite of the fact of a not so grand upbringing as an orphan and as a foster child. I aged out of foster care and starting my first work at 19 years old, mopping floors on the midnight shift at LaGuardia Airport, cleaning toilets, mopping floors, and cleaning urinals. I had a very humble beginning, but I had a good attitude and I was persistent. And I was actually excited to get my first real paying government job. It was for the Port Authority that controls of New York City, that controls all of the airports in New York and New Jersey. And so I was very, very, very happy. And I worked on the midnight shift. And a quick story, my first real important lesson that I'm still talking about to this day. I'm in a stall cleaning a toilet. I'm whistling while I'm working. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. And a man comes into the bathroom. A flight came in late. He did his business and then he went over to the sink and began washing his hands. And I came out of the stall and he finished washing his hands. I was observing him. He took the towel, paper towel, rolled it up, wiped down the counter, and then began polishing the chrome on the faucet. So I laughed, and he surprisingly turned around and saw me laughing. And I asked him, would you like a job? You did a great job. And he laughed. He said, yeah. He said, but I laughed when I came in the bathroom because I never went into a bathroom where the person cleaning the toilet was whistling. And I laughed. I said, well, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Find something you learn. So we were both laughing. And he said, the reason I did that, young man, is because I learned in life that whatever you touch in life, leave it just a little bit better. I'm still talking about that. That is one of my core philosophies. Whatever I touch, leave it a little bit better, which is really my hope and wish that today, with our conversation and what I had to say as it relates to that conversation, will leave our audience just a little bit better.
I think that answers my last question, which was if you can give a call to action to Black community to begin with the process of restoration today, what would that be? But I think you just answered that.
Whatever partner you are dating, please, each encounter with that partner leave them just a little bit better. If they are worthy. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Man, lock, stock. They put the break in park. That works for me. Mr. George Fraser, Dr. Fraser, excuse me. Thank you. Those times in life, you just got that. It wasn't a belt whipping, but if it needed one, I sure got one right there. Today, that you can't say too much after. You just got to take it, absorb it, and go. And I hope that others can have that same effect on themselves from hearing this. I don't know if ever in life enough thanks can go towards, and I'm not saying this to gaslight, I'm saying this in terms of appreciation to the level of grace and candor that you provided to me, the community as whole, to everybody in this world, that you've done, and considering the humble upbringings that you've come from. Thank you, because you certainly did not have to, but you chose to, because like you said, you wanted to make this world leave something better, a counter. And I thank you. We've all fallen short, but you've taken every step and turned it around. And your definition of taking lemons and making it into lemonade. And I thank you so much.
Can I want to close with a very short little story.
Please.
Put a cherry on top. And I hesitate to tell this story because it makes me tear up. I was giving a speech, I believe it was in North Carolina, and it was being covered by television, ABC television, and a sister was the interviewer. So after the speech, she was very excited about what I had to say, and she said, "Dr. Fraser, what would you like on your tombstone?" I said, wow, no one has ever asked me that question, right? And quite frankly, I'm not sure I ever thought about that, right? I said, so let me think for a second. Okay, all right. A tombstone. At the top of the tombstone is the year you were born. There's a hyphen, and then there's the year you died. The hyphen represents your entire body of work. It represents your entire life. Under that, your name. And under my name, I only want 2 words. He mattered. And therein lies the question. Do you matter? And to whom? And for what?
Amen. Amen. For those who want to follow up, purchase your books, I know they're on Amazon or what have you, but those who want to follow up with you, questions, and reach out to you for all your works and follow your tour, how can they follow you with your website, what have you, social media?
I have a website, GeorgeCFraser.com, GeorgeCFraser.com, or they can follow up at Power Networking EX, PowerNetworkingEX.com. That's our conference is coming up in November 5th through the 8th in Atlanta. And I would really love if our brothers and sisters decided to join us. I mean, you got just a few crumbs today, right? Yes. You're going to get a whole meal over 4 days at the Power Networking Conference. It was rated by Forbes magazine as one of the top 5 conferences in America not to be missed. Not one of the top 5 Black conferences, one of the top 5 of all conferences in this country. We're movers and shakers, givers like yourself, Stephen, people who have climbed the ladder of life and matter. They will gather there, 1,500 of them. And you're talking about power networking, you're talking about power coaching, you're talking about power mentoring. That is the best place that you want to be for 4 days. What I'd like to do is provide a special offer. I'm going to call it the Stephen offer. It's a special offer to anyone that was smart enough to view this video, Zoom call. It is a one-time offer. It's for a limited time. And what I want to do is make you a registration offer, because a registration at our conference is not inexpensive, because knowledge is power and good knowledge is expensive. All right. So it's $2,000 to come to our conference. $1,997 is a registration fee. So what I'd like to do is to reduce that to $599. $599 to come to the 24th anniversary of the Power Networking Conference in Atlanta, November the 5th through the 8th. Now, the only way you can get that is you have to get it through me. So you have to email me at gfraser@frasernet.com. That's gfraser@frasernet.com. In the subject line, put "I'm in Stephen." Subject line, "I'm in Stephen." And in the body of the email, just put your full name and your cell number, your full name and your cell number. And I will personally call you. That's worth the price of admission.
Very much so.
And handle our business over the phone by credit card.
Okay.
So that's my offer. That's what I want to give to this incredible audience.
And it's at the Omni Hotel, Centennial Park.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a very great place to go. I've been there before. Looking forward to it. I will be there myself, and I can't wait.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you so much. Keep doing God's work. And you know where I am if you need me.
Yes, sir. You're gonna stick with me. I'm gonna close out, and I just thank everybody so very much. I appreciate you for all that you do. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me at enlivengm@gmail.com. ENLIVENGM@gmail.com. You also can go to our website, enlivengm.com. And also for all our business consulting and social media, event production, operational enhancement, and more, please go to ononeconsulting.com. It's all spelled out, ononeconsulting.com. You can get a lot of information there. Thank you so very kindly. I greatly appreciate it. Love you all. Please take care of yourself and each other, and have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.